Hi, this is David again, and I wanted to leave with you as I start to think over for 50 years of being in a cult. There's so much information in my head that I've just suppressed. And as it comes out, thank God for the internet and the YouTube so I can bring it to you for anyone that's interested. And there's not a lot. So anyway, let me tell you the last ditch statement of Mormons. The cult teaches them to say these things. I remember, I had a good friend, John Hunter, who was Howard W. Hunter, the prophet's son. And he lived with me in Ojai, California. And John was one of my scout leaders, and he didn't molest me. I don't know who else, but I know John. He was a pretty straight guy. And I would ask John questions like, well, if you're divorced in the Mormon church, where do the kids go afterwards? Do they go with the mother to heaven? They go with the father in heaven? And he goes, David, where do you come up with these questions? I'm just curious. Where do they go? He says, I don't know. I said, well, you're supposed to. You're the prophet's son. I don't think he knows either. I should have known at that point. I should have got out. But I stayed another 10 years or 20 years. Anyway, the Mormons are trained to say, all the questions that you ask, we don't have answers for. But, now here it is. Here's the cult. But, when Jesus comes to the earth in the millennium, you can ask him. And he knows. Now, did you get that? Okay, when Mormons can't answer your questions, why did Joseph marry two 14-year-olds? I don't know. Joseph was commanded by Jesus, and when he comes to usher in the millennium, you can ask Jesus. Well, I'm going to be first in line. Go, Jesus, I need a little info here, please. Well, now here's what the Mormons believe. They believe that Jesus is going to appear in Jackson County, Missouri. Now, I lived in Jackson County, Missouri. Frankly, if I was Jesus, I would have chosen a better place. But hey, it's Jesus' land. I'm not going to say anything about Jesus' opinion of where he wants to appear. There is a plot of land in Jackson County, and the reorganized church, which has now become, I can't remember their name, the Church of Christ Brotherhood or something. They didn't want their name on the Mormon church either. Even Warren, Jeffs, he didn't want his name on the Mormon church. He said, I'm the reorganized RLDS, FLDS. So he bailed out too, like I did with a resignation. But anyway, the Mormons believe that this temple site, S-I-T-E, the Brotherhood, I think, owns 2/3 of it. They have a temple on 1/4 of it, and they had, last time I was there, many, many years ago, they had a tabernacle on another kitty corner lot, and then the Church of Christ owned 1/4 of the land, and then the Church of Jesus Christ, the Mormons, owned the last 1/4 of the land. Now, I told you they had a pageant there. I told you I went over with my son Dan one night. So I was in the Missouri ward, and we were assigned during their pageant to guard the audio and visual equipment because people come in and I guess steal it. So we slept on the lawn together, father and son, and we made sure there were no scout leaders there, just the father and the son. And we guarded it, no one stole it, etc. Now the Mormons believe somehow, I guess, that whole site eventually is going to become theirs. It hasn't yet, but they believe that. And then Jesus is going to come there, and he wants a place to live. So the Mormons are going to build a temple there. I guess they're practicing with all these temples that they're building, but this one has to have a residence for Jesus. Now, maybe they'll call in Marriott. I don't know. Marriott knows a lot about hotels. I don't know if he's going to put, porno videos in those rooms for the TV or not. I don't know if Jesus watches porno. I don't know. But anyway, the Mormons are going to call Marriott there, and he's going to put a Jesus residence in there. Well, now, the Mormons, I guess, and they call it the New Jerusalem. I think that's going to be a little offensive to the old Jerusalem Jews, and I have not heard a lot about the rapture. When I was teaching sex education in college, the rapture meant much different definition than the rapture to heaven. My rapture that I was teaching didn't go to heaven, but it felt like heaven. So anyway, the Mormons don't believe in the rapture, but they do believe a little bit that the bad people of the earth will be burned like the stubble in the field, and that the good people will rise up, I guess, out of the fire and then float back down with Jesus, and that there'll be a rain, not sprinkles, but a rain like a kingdom by Jesus for 1,000 years. Now, I guess in that 1,000 years, everyone that had questions about Mormonism are still in a line going, I have another question about Mountain Meadows. So anyway, the Mormons do believe that Jesus is coming to Jackson County, Missouri, and they also believe Jackson County, Missouri was the Garden of Eden. Now, I know 200 of you just fell off your damn chair. I'm hanging on to the desk when I say this crap, because I still fall off the chair. Again, I don't know. If I was making a Garden of Eden, I might put it in Hawaii or the Bahamas. But I've been in Jackson County, Missouri. There's no mountains. There's no valleys. It's just flat, boring. And now I know some of you people are from Missouri, and I'm going to get shit for this on the comments. But you got to admit, the people who live in Jackson County, Missouri are not the brightest stars in the sky. All right. I'm already apologizing for the Missourians that I have offended. But anyway, if you live out in California or New England, the church says you're going to have to take your year's supply of food and buy yourself a covered wagon. Now, I haven't seen too many covered wagon car lots here in Utah, and we're gonna get a covered wagon and go out in the snow, the blood, the mud, and the beer, and go to Jackson County to meet Jesus. Now, hopefully, we won't catch on fire. We will be lifted up with our elk and oxen and caribou and the wagons, and the kids will be hanging over the side watching the fire and all the Catholics burning the great and abominable church. So anyway, the Mormon church believes that Jesus will come, and he's full of answers. He knows everything about everything, and he is going to take over the Mormon church. Now, I don't know if the prophet gets to retire with income. Does he have a retirement? Yes, he does. But if he doesn't die and Jesus just shows up, is Jesus going to open the books and say, see, here's the book of life, and all the Mormons, like Mitt Romney, paid stock, Burger King, to the Mormon church, and you guys weren't eating at Burger King, heads off. Was it Marie Antoinette? Let them eat cake? Off with their heads. I think that's, what's her name? Alice in Wonderland, the queen there, off with their heads. So anyway, if you want to get I went to Jackson County when I was a Mormon because I said, shit, I don't have enough money to come here in a chaotic United States. I better just show up now and wait for Jesus. Well, son of a bitch, he never showed up. And I thought, this is a stupid place to live. I don't want to live here. So I went back to California, and now I'm in hell, Utah hell. But it's getting better. The Mormons are losing more and more control of the state, and there is more of a richness and fullness of life here. So anyway, I did buy a covered wagon. It's out in the parking area there, and I've got 2 horses. They're called the Joseph Smith horses. All you do is when there's an emergency and people are after your ass, you just jump on that wagon. You don't have to touch the reins. The horses know, run like hell. They're used to Kirtland. They're used to Nauvoo. They're used to Liberty Jail. They're used to running. So anyway, I also put a Urim and Thummim on there. I didn't want to go Tom Tom. I didn't know Tom Tom would work. So I know the Urim and Thummim will work. And I put on the breastplate so I could read the road map. The Urim and the urine. What? I can't remember. The urine? No. I can't remember. One of my people were, and Thummim. That's what Joseph Smith looked into, and his hat. And I also have a top hat there, and I also have a big rock. And so I'm ready for any kind of an emergency. And I have stacked way in the back hundreds of garments that I can wrap around myself in the winter and go back where Brigham Young came from and land in Jackson County. I hope Jesus has hotels there, and him and Marriott are like this, okay, and Marriott's on top. And I hope he doesn't have the pornography out of his rooms yet. I gotta find something to do there in Jackson County. It's a boring place, it really is. I think Jesse James was shot in Jackson County, Missouri, and that's one of the most exciting things there. Anyway, Jesus is coming. He's coming to Jackson County. I got my wagon and my family packed, and I'm making sure that I have extra Book of Mormons to pass out among the Indians, if there's still any going back. Frankly, I'd rather go to California. I'd rather live on the beach in California. It's cold as hell in Jackson County, Missouri. Like I said, I was there. I was in a ward. I was active. And in our ward, we gathered food and guns. And there was a special warehouse for guns. And it wasn't official. It was the members of the church, but the authorities went, they go, we're not going to say a word. Let them gather guns. So anyway, I moved out of Jackson County, Missouri. So if you want to meet Jesus, go to Jackson County. Thanks.